find the deal, sign the contract, and then find the money. So you done all of that. Now what's next? What's next is closing day. So some of the things that happen when you're closing on a contract is you have to make sure that there's no taxes owed on the property. You got to make sure that there's no back liens on the property. So let's say somebody is selling a house, but 3 years ago they had a roofer come out and do a new roof, and they didn't pay the roofer, right? And then now it's a lien on their property for a roof. That will be part of the title work that you will be able to see through the recorder's office. And if the person is trying to sell the property and they have liens on the property, that has to come out of what they're getting in the profit. So let's say they're selling the house for 100,000 and they got a $20,000 lien. So that $20,000 needs to be paid before you get the property. So that's part of the things that you have to go through whenever you close it. The only way you should do this is with an attorney. You shouldn't try to negotiate things on your own. You shouldn't even do the deal if they have things like this under their belt, right? So you go through the attorney finds all of these things that's wrong with it through what you call a title search, title insurance, and things like that. They're going to find if they owe water bills. They're going to find if they owe taxes on this property. They're going to find everything that's wrong with it. And part of these costs is going to be calculated in the closing costs. So you'll be paying like your taxes, prorated taxes. So you have to pay the taxes for the year. You have to pay for the insurance on the property. So if a tree falls, you will still have property. So all of these is called closing costs. And this is the final step of whenever you're buying a property, the closing. So let's walk through this. Let's say Joe wanted to sell me a property and he said he wanted $100,000 for this property. I say, okay, Joe, let's sign a contract. We sign the contract, and Joe owns the property outright, and he wants to sell or finance it to me. He wants to be the bank. So how this goes is Joe would say, hey, give me 10% every year for the next 30 years, and the property is yours. So 10% of $100,000 is $10,000, right? So that's every year. So that'll be about $1,000, close to $800 to $900 a month, right? That's your payments going to Joe. Joe's making $1,000 a month, roughly, off of this property. You're paying $800 to $1,000 a month off this property, but the property is yours. Even though Joe holds the deed and all of this stuff, until you pay him, the property is yours. So their title work that you're going to go through. So after you sign the contract, you're going to do the title work. All right. The title work will say if Joe owes liens or anything. So in this case, Joe owes the IRS $10,000, and one of the tenants moved out and they didn't pay the water bill. So now it's a water bill on there for $500. So $10,500 of that needs to go to the IRS for you to be able to switch this title over, this deed over. So that's part of Joe's cost. So instead of him getting 100,000 for this house, he would get $90,000 for this house, 89,500. Does that make sense? Do those numbers make sense? He has to pay the taxes, and he has to pay the water bills before he switches it over to you. So you don't get stuck with those. All right. So that's going to be part of the down payment. So let's say Joe said, hey, you can get the house. You just got to give me 20,000 up front. The 20,000 don't go in Joe's pocket. It goes to the IRS and to the water bill. Now, That's now it's your property now. That's the whole process that we're going through. We're finding the deal, we're signing the contract, we're getting an attorney to do all of the title work, and now at the closing table, that's where we switching off and handing off money. Only at the closing table is we switching off and handing off money. I did it in the past where I didn't wait to the closing day to hand over money, and luckily everything went like it was supposed to. But I shouldn't have did that. I should have always went through an attorney. So these are things you should know.